Hi and welcome to my channel, Finding My Voice Again. I'm Rebecca and hidden away in my hair is my buddy Boots, the green-cheeked conure. This channel is all about my experience and journey of having dysphonia as I recover. If you'd like to know a little bit more about me and if you'd like a better view of Boots, I do recommend that you do watch episode 1, an introduction to me and my dysphonia, as it will add a bit of context into this video and previous and upcoming videos. So my setback, sort of the beginning point I would say, was when I got a minor cold virus in March. So this cold, in comparison to the cold I experienced previously in the December, was exceptionally mild. The symptoms were barely noticeable, if I'm honest. If it hadn't been for the dysphonia, I probably wouldn't have really been that conscious of it. Whereas when I'd experienced a cold in the December, which didn't trigger a setback, I really did feel very, very unwell for a good week. I had the full-on sort of stuffy nose, sore throat, achy body, all of the symptoms really. So anyway, started with this cold in the March, took it a bit easy, so sort of rested my voice as much as I possibly could. But because I have sort of other health conditions that are related to the dysphonia, sort of due to the neuropathic nature of them, the cold seemed to sort of exhaust my body and energy, which led to, at the end of the week of having the cold, a neuropathic flare-up. So this is when the whole of my body just sort of crashes, it collapses. I get intense pain in the areas which are impacted by the neuropathic pain. But overall, my whole body is just sapped of energy because of the amount of resource it's required to manage the pain flare-up that I'm experiencing. So when I have a huge neuropathic flare-up, which is exceptionally rare now, like this really, really did shock and surprise me, as I hadn't experienced one in probably around a year, to be honest. Really took me back. And with that, I just sort of have to rest fully as much as possible. I really have to get as much sleep as I can. Lots of Epsom salt baths to sort of ease the muscles, and just eating as well and healthy as possible to give my body the nutrition it needs to create that energy to fight the neuropathic flare-up. So I did all that and started to get out of the neuropathic flare-up, started to feel a bit more like me, got over the cold, got over the neuropathic flare-up, and then had a very strange incident in the middle of the night where a stranger was in the front garden where I was staying, and it woke me up from the noise. And the stress and the adrenaline and the shock of experiencing that panic of not knowing why a stranger is in the front garden caused a huge neuropathic flare-up. So I couldn't sleep, which really, really doesn't help when you have neuropathic pain. My whole body just sort of crashed from absolute exhaustion and from all this sort of worry and anxiety and adrenaline that had been rushing through me. So that caused obviously another kind of like shock to the body, the third shock if you like, in the space of around 2 weeks. And it was at this time I decided it'd be a great time to increase my hours on my phased return at work, and therefore increase my workload at the same time. And this just sort of was like the straw that broke the camel's back, really. It just set my body into absolute panic mode. It created full-on stress. The insomnia kicked right back in as well, so I wasn't sleeping hardly. And everything really from the past couple of weeks had just sort of come together and knocked my body for six. And with my throat and my voice being the very vulnerable part of me, and the area sort of most sensitive and susceptible to sort of pain at the moment because of the dysphonia, all of this stress, anxiety and worry and exhaustion and physical loss of energy and pain went straight to there. And I very consciously became aware of just how tight my throat began to feel, just like back in the early days of having dysphonia, the sort of gripping sensation. My throat was becoming very sore very rapidly, which is something I'd been actually seeing improvement on, that suddenly had gone straight back as well. And the words, my voice, how it actually sounded, had a strain to it, which is something I was familiar with from when I started having the dysphonia. So overall, I just felt like something had really gone wrong. It just didn't feel right. Everything felt out of sorts. Everything felt too familiar to the early stages of dysphonia after all the progress I'd made for months and months of voice therapy. So I went and saw my voice therapist, and she was very kindly able to confirm through feeling that area, the larynx was indeed right high again. So all that work I'd done to lower it, it had jumped right back up. And when I was speaking, it was jumping all about again, which inevitably was leading to all of the all too familiar symptoms that I was experiencing. And we sort of very much recognised that I was gone into a setback mode, which is perfectly normal. It's something to be expected. It is part of the cycle of recovery. The 2 steps forward, 1 step back. In any form of recovery, this can happen. So the first thing is, do not panic. This is normal. It's something that will happen, something that can happen, and it's okay if it does happen. I, in my absolute panic, was completely devastated. I didn't take the setback very well at all, and that's really when my sort of mental health went completely downhill, which I do speak about in a previous episode. But now, on the other side of the setback and back into recovery mode and back into going forward, I now recognise that actually that huge anxiety that I developed of not getting better, the setback was just a downward spiral in my head. Those thoughts weren't actually right. You do recover from a setback. It takes time, and it's difficult and it's hard and it's emotionally draining to go through, but you do go back onto the road of recovery. It is not the end, and I can absolutely reassure you of this, having come out of the other end of it. And now I would handle my, any setbacks that I have very differently to that initial first setback. I would be in a lot more comfort of knowing that it's just part of the journey. It doesn't mean I'm going right back to the start. It's just a little pause, if anything, to reassess, make sure I'm really taking care of myself, and then I start moving forwards again. So what I did was, first thing was I reduced my hours at work again as part of my phased return, and reduced my workload with that as well. My employer and manager were exceptionally supportive, exceptionally understanding, which really did help sort of with the whole setback and how I felt about the setback. They made me feel like, hey, this is not the end of the world. Just because you're reducing your hours and workload doesn't mean this is the end of the story. Like I say, it's just a minor pause to take care of yourself, and then you can bounce right back. I went back to basics with my voice therapy. So for me, that's about doing the breathing exercises, doing lots of yawning stretches, really big yawns like that, and doing my, what I call the Eeyore voice, or the sad voice. So, I'm so sad. So really pulling the larynx back down. That's what these exercises are all about, getting it lowered again. And some very gentle bubbling exercises with straw and water. And when I spoke, I would consciously be thinking, does my voice sound lower? Because the lower the voice, the lower the larynx. And over time, I have been able to retrain my voice, I'd say 90% of the time, to speak in a much lower tone than I used to. And that's really going to benefit with the larynx. So after, a couple of weeks of doing these exercises and going back to basics, really resting, really recovering, really allowing myself to process everything that had happened, and working on my ill mental health, having things like talking therapy, which once again I speak about in a previous episode, I slowly built back up. I slowly have started to increase my hours back again in my phased return, increase my workload very gently and carefully, and I'm feeling in a really good place. It feels like things have started to sort of stabilise much better, and with stability comes the opportunity to move forward and make more progress, and I'm very hopeful this is going to continue. So, in summary, with a setback, it really is all about pacing, allowing yourself to rest and recover when needed, and taking care of yourself, and try not to get too disheartened. I can promise you it is not the end, it is just a minor pause, and you absolutely will bounce back. So I really hope what I've spoken about in this video, if you're experiencing a setback or anxious about a setback, that it offers you some comfort and reassurance and some sound advice. So my next episode is just going to be quite a brief episode. It's just going to be talking about some of the resources that I found have really helped me with dysphonia and understanding dysphonia, and some of the silver linings that I've found to help with me sort of seeing how I perceive the dysphonia as well. So I really look forward to going through that with you in my next episode. Do feel free to subscribe to my channel, and of course all comments and ideas for future videos are welcome. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, and thank you very much for watching.